Football! I am absolutely obsessed with this sport. So imagine my shock when I load in Netflix one day and find out that there's a movie called the Soccer Football Movie starring one of the greatest players of all time, Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And of course when I saw this I was very confused how I've never heard of this movie before. So I initially go to the letterboxd page of this film and find out that literally no one has ever seen it. So I took it upon myself to actually go and watch this movie with my mate Jack to see if it's actually any good. And well, it's certainly interesting. Now, the football soccer movie is probably the weirdest movie I have ever seen, and that is genuinely not an understatement. This movie is so strange. It has everything to do with football, but also nothing to do with football at the same time. It's a miracle. And I believe that the best way to show you how strange this film is just by telling you the plot. So the film opens with Zlatan Ibrahimovic taking a penalty, and he scores an absolute screamer and fireworks come out the ball for no reason at all. And I would assume this made him win the match because in the next scene he's seen in this dressing room. And it's in this scene when we get introduced to the other main protagonists in this movie, these four kids. And these four kids are part of some pest control group, and after they have a juggle off with Zlatan, they decide to team up. Then it cuts back to Zlatan in his dressing room, and he finds some sort of radioactive football that transforms into a radioactive slug that then makes him turn into venom.
A FIFA World Cup without me is not worth watching.
But the lion cannot miss the hunt.
I will qualify on my own and I will dominate.
Surely you have to be registered in a squad.
Regulations are for the regular players. I am Zlatan.
And after this event, Zlatan goes absolutely mental and runs out of the stadium like a madman. And if you remember me saying that these kids are part of pest control, well that's key to the plot because they're going to go and find Zlatan before he blows up the entire city. So the kids eventually find Zlatan Ibrahimovic just chilling about the city and they try and stop him. So the team gear up in what is the only quality piece of animation in this entire movie. And it's at this point when we get introduced to the main villain, Al Yankovic, who was the person who gave Zlatan the radioactive football that made him turn into venom. And if this film wasn't confusing enough already, we get introduced to another character, this random woman who plays for the USA soccer team. I have genuinely never heard of her before. And oh no, she opens one of the radioactive footballs set up by Al Yankovic. Oh, what's going to happen? So she gets in a scrap with one of the slugs and loses and turns into another one of Venom's mates. And yep, if you remember, these kids are still looking for Zlatan at the meantime, and the way that they find out that Zlatan can be transformed back into his usual self is through a fucking whoopee cushion. How is this film real? So, after the kids find out this unbelievable fact, Zlatan transforms into his usual self again. And then Zlatan conveniently walks into what I'm assuming is a joke shop and turns back into Venom again. And then Zlatan wanders about the city a bit more, and we find out his ponytail is a living being. And at this point I was so confused what I was even watching, the fact that an animated version of Ibrahimovic's ponytail was talking back to him. And then we find out why evil Al Yankovic has been sending these football players radioactive footballs, and that reason is because he wants to steal their talent. Oh yeah, and also in this scene we get the shocking revelation that all of Zlatan Ibrahimovic's talent actually comes from his ponytail, who is alive. So Yankovic chops off Zlatan Ibrahimovic's ponytail, puts it on himself and robs all of his epic talent. So after he puts the ponytail on his head, he turns into Venom again and becomes one of the greatest football players of all time, rivaling even Iheanacho. And you might even be confused why Al Yankovic is even bothering, and that is because there's a massive match coming up and Al Yankovic wants to win it really bad. And Zlatan's all sad now because he's lost all his talent, so the kids and him meet up again and they have some sort of Rocky training montage where he gets back up into form. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, that big game that Al Yankovic was preparing for, that is today. So, you know, Zlatan didn't have much time to prepare, but the game is now, let's go. So the big match opens with a cutscene that looks straight out of FIFA 13, and as you need 11 players to play in a football match, Al Yankovic uses a team of slugs as his players, while Ibrahimovic uses the kids. So at first these green people and Al Yankovic start winning the match, then Al Yankovic goes and scores a rainbow flick volley, an absolute screamer of a goal. Then Al Yankovic scores a load of goals, and it is now 7-1, and Zlatan's obviously not happy about this. So Zlatan has a team talk with the team, and then they suddenly start playing like prime Barcelona. So the team equalises with 30 seconds left on the clock, and I don't know who made this film, but that is not how football time systems work in the slightest. And then of course, because this just makes the most sense, Zlatan and now Jankovic get on a bit of a 1v1. And if I'm being honest, Zlatan Ibrahimovic absolutely mugs him off. And then Ibrahimovic scores your average Emerson Royal goal, and it's considered an absolute screamer. And he literally kills one of the slugs.
Bruh.
So the whole crowd goes wild because Ibrahimovic has just won against Al Jankovic. But a good villain doesn't give up that easily, so Al Jankovic turns into single-handedly the most terrifying thing I have ever seen in an animated movie. I have absolutely no idea what kind of mental person allowed this in a kids' movie. Here is some of the stuff I was scared of as a kid. Yeah, the most random stuff ever. If I was 5 and watching this, I'd be absolutely terrified. So Zlatan and the kids then defeat the monster in another horrifying scene. Like, why is this so scary? It's a kids movie about football. And because they defeat the monster, they get to take home the trophy. Oh, and what's that in the trophy? A setup for a sequel? Oh my god. And then the credits play. And that's the end of the film. Now, I think to say that this film is confusing or muddled is a bit of an understatement. I think it's the most batshit insane thing I have ever even watched. I think this film would have been infinitely better if it was just a simple football movie and not some sort of Ghostbusters parody. Because that's what this film feels like to me, but you spend so much time with these kids trying to catch the venom creatures that it just feels incredibly long. Except the film isn't long, it's actually quite short, it's only 74 minutes long. But there is still so much filler in this movie, and I don't know why. I also didn't mention when I was telling you the plot, but this film is incredibly self-aware, and it doesn't have a reason to be. Like, just go watch the trailer for it and you'll know exactly what I mean. And I mean, coming to think of it, this film is basically a 74-minute long trailer. It has about the same character progression and story as your average trailer does. Oh yeah, and I didn't mention that this film is painfully unfunny. I literally laughed at 0 of the jokes. I think the only time I genuinely laughed was laughing at how stupid this film is. Like, the jokes in this film may be funny, but me and my mates still had a blast of a time because of how ridiculously stupid this film is. Like, if you're a hardcore football fan like me and my mate, I genuinely can't recommend this film more. But when the credits started to play, I was genuinely wondering, why does this film even exist? And I was under the assumption that it was to promote the World Cup because it was released in 2022, but no, there's literally no mentions of that. And the genuine reason I found for this was just to suck off Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Like, I get it, he's a phenomenal football player, but in this movie they say he's the greatest so many times, and that's basically all this film's about, is how great of a football player Zlatan Ibrahimovic is. I don't know, I just don't think this film has a real reason for actually existing. It's a unfunny, uninspired, awfully animated mess of a movie, but I had such a fun time watching it. This film is just so outrageous and so unbelievable and shattered every single one of my expectations that I absolutely love it. Yeah, it might be one of the literal worst things I've ever seen, but I love this movie and I'm not afraid to say it. So yeah, I like this film. I recommend you, if you're a football fan, get a mate together and go watch it. But yeah, this is my video on top 10 things you didn't know about Fortnite. So I hope this video was decent, I had fun making it. Like, subscribe, just abuse me in the comments, do whatever you want, I don't really care. And yeah, thanks for watching. Appreciate it.